It was a steamy July morning in 1954, and Tokyo's Haneda Airport was buzzing with life. Planes were touching down, luggage carts were rattling along the tarmac, and polite announcements floated through the air in Japanese, creating a familiar rhythm. Everything felt perfectly normal until he stepped off the plane. A middle-aged man, sharply dressed in a tailored gray suit, emerged from a European flight carrying a sleek leather briefcase and a small passport wallet. At first glance, he seemed like just another businessman navigating post-war Japan. But as he approached customs, the atmosphere shifted. The customs officer, with a polite smile, asked for his nationality. The man returned the smile and confidently handed over his passport. It looked impressively official, well-worn and stamped, but what caught everyone's attention was the nationality listed, Taured. The officer frowned. "I'm sorry, sir. Where did you say you were from?" The man looked confused. "Taured," he repeated clearly, "between France and Spain." "Surely you know it." The officer didn't. Neither did anyone else, because Taured didn't exist. They pulled out maps, modern maps, historical maps, but there was no Taured anywhere. The man became visibly irritated, insisting it was right there, near the border of France and Spain, a country older than Andorra. He even pointed to where it should have been, his frustration growing as he described the rolling hills and charming towns he claimed were part of his homeland. But in that spot was only Andorra, a tiny country that seemed to mock his assertions. When they told him that, the man's face went pale, almost as if he couldn't comprehend what they were saying. "No," he said quietly, his voice trembling slightly. "That can't be right. My country has been there for over 1,000 years. I've lived there my whole life." The customs officers exchanged uneasy glances, but remained professional, asking him to wait while they verified his story. His passport seemed authentic. It had official stamps from Tokyo, other European cities, even past entries to Japan. His wallet contained multiple currencies, francs, pesetas, and yen, all neatly organized. His business cards matched his name, and he spoke fluent French, Japanese, and a few other languages, making it all the more puzzling. Everything about him was normal, except for the fact that his home country didn't exist. They took him aside to a small, private office, which felt a bit too stuffy for the situation. The officials quickly reached out to the company on his business card, but guess what? No one had ever heard of him. Then they called the hotel where he claimed to have a reservation. Surprisingly, the hotel confirmed a booking under his name, but when they dug into the paperwork, poof. The reservation had mysteriously vanished. Every single attempt to cross-check his story turned up empty, like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. So they decided to hold him there, not really arresting him, but just for a little questioning. The man, clearly frustrated and a bit on edge, pulled out his travel itinerary. He insisted he had flown into Japan multiple times for business, always without a hitch. He even mentioned he'd been to Tokyo 3 times just this year. He showed them receipts from a major trade conference, genuine documents that looked legit, and his handwriting matched perfectly. It was also bizarre, but the officials couldn't find his name anywhere in their immigration logs. It was like he was a ghost, existing in the world, but somehow slipping through their fingers. Night fell, and the air was thick with uncertainty. The customs officials, feeling a bit overwhelmed, decided to place the man in a nearby hotel under security watch until they could contact higher authorities in the morning. They gave him a room on the 8th floor with guards stationed outside the door and the window tightly secured. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie, right? What was going to happen next? The man seemed calm. He even joked with one of the officers, saying he hoped this nonsense would be sorted out quickly so he could attend his business meeting the next day. He thanked them for their patience, smiled politely, and went to bed. That was the last time anyone saw him. When officers checked on him the next morning, the room was empty. The door was locked from the inside. The window, 8 stories up, was still sealed. His belongings, including his passport, wallet, and suitcase, were gone. No signs of forced entry, no fire escape, no evidence he'd climbed out. He had simply vanished. Airport security searched the building, the surrounding streets, even the air ducts. Nothing. It was as if the man from Taured had never existed at all. But the strangest part, his passport and documents, which had been held for examination in a secure office, were gone too. Gone, not misplaced, not moved. Gone. Every trace of him, every piece of paper, vanished overnight. Officials quietly buried the report. Japan was still rebuilding after the war, and the last thing they wanted was a headline about a ghost traveler from another world. But word leaked out, first through whispers among customs staff, then into Japanese news circles, and finally, decades later, into Western folklore. Some said he was a time traveler, accidentally slipping into the wrong timeline. Others believed he'd crossed over from a parallel universe, one nearly identical to ours, except for one detail. In his world, Taured existed and Andorra did not. A few skeptics claimed it was all a hoax, a misremembered story that grew over time. But even skeptics admit no official records disproving the story were ever found. And the strangest thing, in some versions of the story, two different customs officers, decades apart, described nearly identical encounters with men from non-existent countries. Laxaria, Karoa, Taured, all bearing realistic passports, fluent in languages, but belonging to nowhere. It was as though these people slipped through cracks in reality itself. Years later, a researcher tried to trace the original case. The Japanese government denied having any such records. Haneda Airport had changed systems and lost archives during post-war transitions. But the details persisted. The same year, same location, same disappearing man. And through the decades, the legend evolved. In some tellings, he was an interdimensional traveler who accidentally crossed into our world. In others, he was part of a government experiment gone wrong, a man who saw something he shouldn't have. Some conspiracy theorists claim that Taured was the name of a classified zone hidden on early maps, and later erased, that his disappearance wasn't supernatural, but intentional, a cover-up. But if you strip away the myth, what remains is this. In 1954, a man carrying a passport from a non-existent country appeared at Haneda Airport. He had documents, money, stamps, and proof of travel. He was questioned, observed, and then, overnight, disappeared from a locked room without a trace. No one ever saw him again. Decades later, people still talk about the man from Taured as if he's out there somewhere, maybe back in his world, maybe stuck between timelines. Some say he occasionally appears again in customs offices, in train stations, on flight manifests that vanish before printing. Always polite, always calm, and always carrying a passport from a place you've never heard of. And if you ever find yourself waiting at an airport late at night, the terminal nearly empty, and someone beside you asks what country you're from, you might want to ask him the same. Because if he says Taured, you might just be standing next to someone who doesn't belong in this world.